Hey folks, we're going to have a problem. Here's your sobering resistance history dispatch of the day.
You lay a finger on someone, on Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, on Representative, or any of the representatives that were there, you lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Okay, to be effective resistance, it has to go through a process of articulation, from protest to organized opposition to active resistance, and then sometimes beyond. That means actual pushback on abusive authority, not performance, not social media posts, but action that stops the abuse or forces its retreat. And that articulation process demands clarity. What exactly are we resisting? That's the product. Can we name it? Can we show it? Do we know what we're resisting against? And so we also know what we're resisting for. Arresting members of Congress, or even threatening to, is pretty much it. I mean, that's the line. We know it when we see it. So what's going on? The regime is now threatening to arrest members of Congress for, as some of its allies are saying, insurrection after their protest at an ICE detention center in Newark. So DHS is publicly weighing criminal charges, and the regime supporters are invoking the language of insurrection, both as political theater and legal framing. So no matter what, this is not business as usual. And here's the bigger point. This is new, unprecedented in the history of the United States, but not in the history of authoritarianism. To understand how serious this is for us, how much of a line this is to cross, we have to go back to 1798 and the Alien and Sedition Acts again. So, what's the constitutional baseline? Go grab your pocket constitution and flip to Article 1, Section 6, which grants limited immunity to members of Congress. They shall, in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and in going to and returning from the same. And for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. That last bit, breach of the peace in terms of the exemptions, has always been kind of an ambiguity. Damn James Madison again. He was thinking about John Wilkes and the British government using civil actions to harass political opponents and disrupt their work in Parliament, or at least Wilkes's. It was a big deal. The Supreme Court, coming back to our side of the ocean, in 1908 in Williamson versus the United States, they interpreted the exceptions, treason, felony, and breach of the peace, that they encompass all criminal offenses. So that understanding means that the privilege from arrest granted to members of Congress is effectively limited to civil arrest only. It does not shield them from arrest for criminal charges, or so the court says. And we know what a court interprets in and a court can interpret out. Has it happened before? One of our bigger points. No, not once, not ever, never in the history of the United States. Not Lincoln during the Civil War, Clement Vallandigham wasn't a sitting congressman. Not Wilson during World War I under the odious Sedition Act of 1918, not Nixon during Watergate. No president has ever ordered the arrest of a sitting member of Congress under their executive authority. This is through the looking glass. Sure, members of Congress have been arrested, but always through the judicial process for things like bribery, corruption, tax evasion. Never for oversight, never for protest, never for speech. Never because they held the executive branch accountable. And yes, oversight is considered attendance at session. Whether it's on Capitol Hill or at a federal detention center, it can be interpreted as being part of the job and protected by the speech clause. Except there is one historical moment that comes close. So let's unpack it. Let's go back to 1798 again, the Alien and Sedition Acts. We're talking a lot about them these days. Designed to crush dissent, signed into law by John Adams. The Sedition Act made it a crime to criticize the president or the government, but notably that didn't cover the vice president, Thomas Jefferson, who was openly going after Adams. But enter Matthew Lyon, one of my favorites, a proper good troublemaker in American history. I love this guy. Born in County Wicklow, Ireland, Lyon came to America as an indentured servant. He works through his time. He joins the Green Mountain Boys. He helps capture Fort Ticonderoga, surrender in the name of Jehovah in the Continental Congress. It's a great line. Not real, but it's a great line. And became a Jeffersonian congressman. So he goes from County Wicklow, an indentured servitude, to being a member of the United States Congress. And he founded a newspaper and famously got into a floor fight, I love this one, with Roger Griswold, who was a Federalist from Connecticut. Griswold insulted Lyons. Lyons spit on him with tobacco juice. And then Griswold later came back with a cane, members of Congress and their damn canes, and then Lyon grabbed a pair of fire tongs and went after Griswold. This is great stuff. Joanne Freeman's got this stuff covered. Then Lyon, after that spat, turned his fire on Adams. He wrote and published that Adams had an unbounded thirst for ridiculous pomp, foolish adulation, and selfish avarice. And Adams was using his office to stifle independent thought. Think about those words. Think about actually how tame they seem. Think about what we say here and what we post here and compare it to that. Those words got him indicted, arrested, and convicted under the Sedition Act as a sitting member of Congress. It's the only time in American history. He acted as his own lawyer and argued that the law, and was new, violated the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Jury didn't care. They didn't buy it. They convicted him. And so he was sentenced to 4 months in jail and $1,000, which in 1798 is real money. But from prison, Lyon became a symbol. He's an Irish troublemaker, right? They turned this kind of thing into an art. And he won re-election by a landslide from his cell. And his case helped make civil liberties a central issue in Jefferson's presidential campaign. After Jefferson won, the Sedition Act expired in 1801. It expired on Adams' last day in office. Why? So that no one after Adams could actually use it against the Federalists, people like Jefferson. That's the only time in U.S. history that a president's administration jailed a sitting member of Congress. Now we're staring down something even worse. This is unprecedented escalation. DHS has stated that arrests of Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, LaMonica McIver, and Congressman Bob Menendez are on the table, even though they said that they were there purely in their legislative capacity as an official oversight action. DHS's story? Remember that breach of the peace part of the clause that doesn't apply to criminal activity? The regime's members are saying that a group of protesters, including 2 members of the House of Representatives, these folks can't get any facts right, stormed the gate, broke into the detention facility, and of course, they get wrong how many were present, right? But the most severe accusations were leveled by DHS's own spokesperson, who said that DHS has body camera footage showing members of Congress assaulting our ICE enforcement officers, including body slamming a female ICE officer. But pay attention to the language that DHS and the regime's allies are using. They deploy it tactically. They stormed the gate. They assaulted officers. The members of Congress engaged in unlawful aggression, thereby justifying the authoritarian response. They want to make it seem like they're going after criminal action, not the content of their speech, of their protest, which is protected in the speech and debate clause of Article 6. The effect is the same, though. It's not just a political overreach. It's the criminalization of dissent. It's not just a chilling effect. It's an assault. Just like the Sedition Act, they're reframing disagreement as a national security threat. They're dusting off the authoritarian toolkit not to respond to a crisis, but to make accountability itself the crisis. And no, the Sedition Act doesn't exist anymore, but the instinct behind it is alive and well in this White House. The executive gets to go ahead and define the boundaries of lawful speech and what constitutes dissent. And that's why this is new, folks. Lyon was jailed for publishing essays. Trump is threatening members of Congress for doing exactly what they were elected to do. inspect federal facilities, challenge abuses, and oversee executive agencies. That's not rebellion, that's accountability. If Trump crosses that line and DHS arrests sitting lawmakers, it will break the system. That one action will mean dissent can be reframed as criminal conspiracy, oversight can be punished as treason, and the president can use federal power to jail political opponents, including those in Congress. This isn't a policy debate. This isn't a matter of opinion. This isn't a disagreement. This is a regime ripping the Constitution to shreds on camera and getting applause for it. And yet a lot of people seem fine with that, including some in Congress. Lock them up. That's the new normal, right? That's how much the status quo has shifted. But we've seen how this ends, sort of. We can use the Matthew Lyon case. It destroyed the Federalist Party, or at least had a major hand in doing it. Jefferson's Republicans took the presidency using civil liberties as a major campaign issue, retook Congress, and reshaped American politics for the next generation. The backlash to authoritarian overreach, when it's clear and documented, can change things. If we pay attention, articulate what's happening, and build resistance that can act, not just react. These are different times, though. As a historian, we got to point that out. These are new forces at work, and the American constitutional system was not built for this moment, and American political culture doesn't seem to be ready for it. So, as Lincoln said in 1862, we must think anew. We must act anew. So what now? Pay attention. Share what's accurate. Cut through the garbage. A resistance history principle, find the signal in the noise. Lean into your community, on your block, in your feed, and in your circles. Remember, resistance is not about victory. It's about making victory possible.